Hi there, this is Alvin, and welcome to the Kickstart Commerce podcast, where we share search marketing and domain investing strategies to help grow your business. In today's episode, our guest is Steven Tey, a developer and founder of Elegance.ai, formerly known as OneWord.Domains. Today, Steven and I discuss how pursuing education in Malaysia landed him in the United States, having recently graduated with a double major in branding and data science from Minerva. We then discuss how a simple prototype to take the top 10,000 most commonly used English words and pairing them with popular non.com domain extensions led to the birth of OneWord.Domains. And if that wasn't enough, Steven shares his lightning in a bottle moment of OneWord.Domains going viral via ProductHunt and Hacker news. Steven also shares how he used OneWord.Domains to discover and launch his next business ideas, Elegance.ai and Recurrence.app. And last but not least, Steven gives us a glimpse of what is on the horizon next for him personally and professionally. So with that, Steven, welcome and thank you for making time to join us today, my man.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, Alvin.
Yeah, certainly, man. We finally get to connect. I know that we tried over NamesCon last, I guess, was it last year or this year?
Last year. I think it was last year. Yeah, it's been a long time coming, and it's really glad to be able to put a face to the name and talk to you in person.
Yeah, man. I'm having COVID amnesia, so I can't remember all my years and months and events and all that. I mean, I do remember the last NamesCon that I attended, which was January 2020 in person. Now, after that, it's all been a wash. But yeah, man, I'm just glad to get to have you on the show today. And so to kick things off, man, why don't you share with the listeners a bit about yourself, who you are, your personal and professional background?
Sure. So my name is Steven. I'm originally from this country called Malaysia. It's located in Southeast Asia between Thailand and Singapore. I came to the US about 4 years ago to start my undergraduate degree. And it's been 4 years. So now I'm graduated finally. So I studied a double major in computer science and brand management. So business and computer science, and specifically in data science. That sort of led me to creating this product that I think we're going to be talking about a lot today. It's called OneWord.Domains. Basically, it's a combination of both my data science skills as well as brand management. Yeah, I'm very excited to be here to share my insights, all the learnings that I've had throughout the years, and help you guys out in any way I can.
Well, to kick things off, then, at least one of the things that struck me is interesting about you is the fact that you are from Malaysia. So how does one go from Malaysia to landing here in the States? Like, walk us through a bit of what it was like to grow up as Steven, and then how you landed here in the States.
Sure. It's always been sort of this passion and goal of mine to be able to study overseas, to basically understand how different cultures work. And the whole reason I chose this school called Minerva, it's a US university. It's very new. It started in 2014. We only have 3 batches of graduates. I'm the 3rd batch.
Wow.
The whole premise is that we get to travel to a different country every semester, live in those countries for 4 months, interact with the locals, work with local companies, get to learn the language a little bit, and through that, be able to expand our worldview and become basically become more experienced and less prejudiced, I guess. Because like if you're living in a sort of homogeneous society for a long time, you don't really understand how other cultures work, and this really helps expand your worldview. So I really am very fortunate to be able to go on this journey with Minerva, and yeah, that's basically how I ended up in the States.
Wow, that is amazing, man. So like, how many languages do you speak?
So I speak 3 languages because it's like my native tongue is Chinese, Mandarin, and I speak English because it's basically the international language. I learned it from a very young age. And there's this language called Malay, which is like the official language in Malaysia. Everyone needs to learn it if you're Malaysian. So I know, and I know a little bit of French. I wouldn't say I'm good at it, but that's like maybe like 20%.
He's like, I can get around a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah, I learned that in basically, we call it college in Malaysia, but it's like pre-university. It's called IB, International Baccalaureate. I took that for 2 years, and that's when I learned French.
Awesome. I have English, Spanglish, Ebonics, and straight up country.
That's awesome. That's
straight up country. You live in Texas. Texans can butcher any and every word up that you could even imagine. But hey, that's a story for Another day.
Gotta love the Southern accent. I love it.
Oh man, that Southern drawl,
Oof.
hey, gotta bring it out. So
Yeah.
then walk me through. So this Minerva school, so this is something that is new.
Mhm.
And what's interesting to me is the simple fact that you've put two things that I don't really even think go together when I think about them at surface level: data science and brand management. Like, how does that seems to me like left brain, right brain type of
Yes.
situation. And so
Yeah.
how does that actually work out? Like, do
Mhm.
you come from a background or family that has some sort of affinity to either one of those or both?
That's a great question. So to sort of understand that, I could start from the beginning. So when I first came to Minerva, prior to joining Minerva, I actually published a book. It was a science fiction novel. And for that, it was like 100,000 word novel. I wrote it myself, and I designed the book cover. I edited it. I got it published and sold over 1,500 copies in Malaysia, which is really cool. But the sort of takeaway that I got from the experience was design. So I learned how to use Photoshop. I learned how to do some simple graphic design. And when I came to Minerva, sort of like the first city that we were in was San Francisco. So we got really exposed to the whole startup culture, and I learned how to do product design, which is slightly different from graphic design. It's more using like software like Sketch. Back then it was Sketch, and now it's like
Right.
Figma. And that sort of exposed me to design. And I remember when I first came to Minerva, I thought I was going to do biotechnology. I was going to do something related to biology. And then it sort of shifted towards finance, but then eventually I landed on business brand management. And it wasn't until the third year of college that I really took three like very intense CS courses in that semester. And I learned a lot about data science. I learned about programming in Python, doing simple like R programming to be able to understand what are the statistics and the top most important data that when it comes to startups. And that's sort of inspired me to create a tool that combines these two aspects: brand creation, design, as well as data science. And if you think about it, it actually works hand in hand, because if you're proficient in data science, you're able to sort of understand what are the trends that are the most popular in branding, what are the trends that are most popular in domain name industry, like all these different trends. If you can use data science tools to sort of analyze it and understand what are the up and coming trends, and all these different things that can be very useful when it comes to creating a brand.
Wow. No, that makes total sense to me. Now, do you have any brothers and sisters, or
I do
is it
have a younger
just
sister. She's like 7 years younger than me. It's quite a big age difference, but she's back home right now doing her high school, finishing it up, I think. But yeah.
you think she'll follow in your footsteps coming state bound, or?
My parents are actually a little bit worried about the sort of the gun control situation here. So I think they're gonna
Yeah.
send her to Australia. That's the plan right now. Might change in the future. She's also interested in data science, but it's definitely like the US definitely has a better data science programs than anywhere else in the world. So you never know. Maybe she'll come here for masters eventually. But for now, the plan is Australia.
Nice. So you recently graduated then, or I guess you
Correct.
graduated, I guess when?
It was like 2 weeks ago. We had our
What?
graduation ceremony. I know we had it on Zoom, which is kind of underwhelming, but it is what it is, I guess. with the whole pandemic, I mean, it's getting better, but still, we couldn't do it in person.
Nah, the man. Well, congratulations,
Thank you.
being able to finish up a program with the double major. Shoot, I've got issues just trying to focus on one thing, let alone two things. So,
The
and
cool
the fact
part,
that you did it well.
I know the cool part about Minerva is that they're very like anti-traditional university thing. So they gave us this really cool scroll. It's like literally a scroll, like a cloth scroll that is our degree. So it says like my name, I graduated with 2 majors with honors, blah blah blah, and it's like a scroll that you can sort of turn it out. But the only problem with that is that when you go through airport security, you really have to put it in like a check bag, because it looks very suspicious. But it looks very cool. Not gonna lie.
Oh man. So during your time now, when did you start OneWord.Domain?
So the timeline is it started in the beginning of the summer last year. The exact date was the 12th of May of 2020. So I was looking for a name for a different project at the time. I think it was something related to fintech industry. I don't remember what it was about, and I couldn't find a brandable. I was a fan of brandable domain names, like one word domain names. so to speak. So what I had in mind at the time was that why hasn't anyone taken like the top 10,000 most commonly used English words, pair them up with TLDs that are very popular in the startup world, like .io, .ai, .co, and now .so. It's getting more and more popular. And then sort of run it with a GUI script, like a Python script to check which one's available. So I did that, and apparently there were like a lot of really cool names. So I decided to just build a simple website using HTML, CSS, and vanilla JavaScript. I just put it out there. I remember the initial prototype. It was really funny. Like I didn't even have a database in place. The names were literally in a .txt file, and I just uploaded everything to Heroku and just deployed it. So it was very, very bare bones and sort of how do I say this? It's like makeshift. They were like all pieced together, but it worked, and people liked it. People liked the names that were on the site, and it took off on ProductHunt. Went to number 2, and eventually someone posted about it on Hacker News, and that's when I got to speak with Andrew from Domain Name Wire, and everything just took off from there.
So was this a class project that you were doing, or just
it was
something that was on the whim of your mind of just, hey, can I actually do this?
Exactly. So it was like, I have always been very fascinated with startups. Like in my freshman year, summer, I actually went to Tokyo. I got into this incubator. They gave us like $500,000 to create a startup that is in the realms of blockchain. And guess what? We created a NFT marketplace, which was like 3 years too early. Like if you remember, there was this NFT hype about a few months ago. But we learned a lot from that. And from that point on, I've always been trying to create a startup of my own, tried a few things in different industries like ad tech, crypto, health tech, even. And eventually I landed upon this idea, which is to basically, it totally started as a side project. I didn't even think it was going to be a business in the first place. I guess it just took off, and I just kept iterating from there. And it's been an incredible journey that I've been on.
Interesting. And so then so you set this up, and it was really more of makeshift, just, hey, can we see if we can do it? Now, I guess, how did you already know about Product Hunt, or how did that come across your radar?
Yeah, I've already known about it before, because with the blockchain NFT marketplace startup that I was building before, we actually launched on Product Hunt. That was in 2018. We got to number 3. Yeah, that's how I first known about the platform, and it's just been on my radar ever since.
Gotcha. Now, for our listeners that may not know about Product Hunt, I mean, share a little bit about what Product Hunt is, and I guess in this case, how it helped give your OneWord.Domains, how it helped to give visibility to it.
Definitely. So Product Hunt is basically how do I explain this in simpler terms? It's like a curation of new products and startups that are created every single day. So it ranges from literally side projects like OneWord.Domains and all the way to, I think recently Twitter rolled out this premium subscription product, and they also launched on Product Hunt. And it's basically used by a lot of different companies to either gain initial visibility or to announce a new product and get people to try it out. For OneWord.Domains, how Product Hunt helped was it really helped with the SEO aspect. So when I first launched it, it was ranked literally nowhere. But after the launch, about 24 hours later, it went up to the top 5 results when you type in OneWord.Domains on Google. So that was really, really helpful to gain the initial traction and initial visibility. And I was able to get a lot of feedback from the initial users that tried out the product. So these two, getting initial users and getting good SEO, those are the two aspects that I say Product Hunt really helped with.
Now, in terms of, so Product Hunt got you this visibility. Now, at the time that everything hit for Product Hunt, now, were you making any money at that time, or were you even, I guess the real question is, were you even really monetizing it at that moment in time, or was it just like, nah, they're just there, the names are there, whoever wants to buy them, they can buy them through a third party, site? Yeah,
so I did actually set up the whole affiliate structure when I first launched it. I think I did. I don't even remember at this point, but I think I did. And people did buy some names, so I was getting 4 cents, 5 cents, and then suddenly sometimes it's $30 if someone buys a lot of names. So it's really cool to see how I was able to make money on the internet without being employed. So running your own business, being able to get those, even if it's affiliate revenue, which is not exactly people paying you, but it's like people buying something and you get a commission, like a share of it. It's still really interesting it sort of kickstarted my entire journey of making money online. And I'm really grateful for the initial people who found names that they liked and purchased it. And I remember I had like Namecheap, GoDaddy. I think it was just these two because those were the ones that I was familiar with. And I had those. I had an affiliate program set up with, I think it was Commission Junction.
Yeah.
And everything started from there.
That's incredible. So then let me ask you this. So you got everything set up.
Mm-hmm.
You got Commission Junction going. Now, prior to this, did you even understand that there was a whole domain investing world or domain industry at all?
I sort of knew about it because I've purchased domains before. I remember the first ever domain I purchased was this domain called, that's really stupid. It's like, it's imeanlike.com, because at the time I was a huge fan of, I'm not sure if you know Wait But Why, it's like a really cool blog. This guy just writes about everything. And
Right.
I was like, okay, I want to start a blog. So I did that. I bought a name. I don't remember where I bought it. I don't think it was Namecheap. I bought it. I hosted it on WordPress, and then that was like when I was in high school. So I was like 14 at the time. That's when I first bought a domain name, but I didn't really know about this entire like domain industry until I guess this summer when I launched OneWord.Domains and got a lot of feedback from people who are in the domain industry. And yeah, it's been a real pleasure to be in this community of very tight-knit, I guess very small community, not that big, of people who are supportive and always eager to chat about new ideas and how to improve the user experience for the product I was building. So yeah, shout out to everyone that I've spoken to out there, and really grateful to be able to be in your acquaintance.
Yeah, so then let me ask you this. So prior to the OneWord.Domains, OneWord.Domains, did you, I mean, I'm assuming, was this your first project to code, or
Yes,
really?
It was actually my first ever web app that I've built like properly by myself.
Get out of here.
I know prior to that, I was just like, I only knew very, very simple HTML, CSS. I didn't really know JavaScript at all. So I treated this as like my first practice for web development, because I knew how to do Python programming, which is like data science, and it's quite different from web development. But I knew all this sort of programming syntax, and I decided to, okay, why not translate this to actually building something that people can use? Because previously I've always been doing a lot of like prototyping, designing in Sketch, designing in this tool called Origami. It's by Facebook. It allows you to create realistic prototypes, but not something that people can actually use, because I can't deploy those designs. I have to know how to code. So this was like my first introduction to that. I treated it as a practice run, and I've just been learning a lot since then. In the last 12 months, I've learned so much about programming. It feels like it's 10 years of learning
and making money along the way.
I know. That's like a really good side byproduct, I guess.
Like, I don't know too many people that go from not knowing code, or at least knowing only front end code, to really becoming a full stack developer and take a first project and then basically begin to iterate on it and grow it to a point that basically making money from it.
Exactly. I consider myself very fortunate to be. I think it's a lot to do with skill, but also at the same time luck, because I wouldn't have guessed that the launch of ProductHunt would go so well. People would really like it. I honestly was just aiming for like a top 5 finish, but it got to number 2, and that's how I got majority of my users in the beginning. So yeah, very fortunate for sure.
And then Hacker News hit, and then it was just like floodgates open.
It was insane. It was literally like 10,000 people in 2 days when it got onto. I remember I was just building out like a small feature, and then suddenly my phone just keeps buzzing, and it was like emails, because I had like a type form set up, like a forum set up for people to suggest new TLDs, and like it just kept buzzing. It was like every two minutes a new email, a new notification, and I was like, what's going on? I went to Google Analytics. I was like, whoa, it's like 100 people on the site every minute. And like apparently someone posted about it in Hacker News. I was actually planning to post it myself, but then someone did it for me, and that sort of took off, I guess.
I guess it's a testament though to just Because when you think about OneWord.Domains, it is a simple idea. Like,
Yes.
there's not really any rocket science to
Definitely.
this. And so when we break it down and say it like that, or look at it from that perspective, it's kind of like, one, why wasn't this already done? Two, the fact that someone who didn't come into the industry with domain industry experience, nor did you really come into it with computer, science of at least more than a decade experience. You just came in and it was kind of like you didn't know what you didn't know, which was good. And I think that that's how it oftentimes products come to be, is that you don't know what you don't know. And because you don't know what you don't know like, oh, I probably shouldn't do certain things like this, to where you were like, hey, I'm just going to start out. Most people would have said, well, man, you need a database to do this. But you were like, no, I'm just going to start with a flat file and just see where this goes. And then I'm assuming at some point, probably once I guess it hit Hacker News, you figured out and said, oh, I've got to figure out how to integrate database into this as you begin to build out those features. I guess, was that the kind of the story?
Yes, totally. Yeah, that's, I think, when I realized that, it's not as scalable. Whenever a domain is purchased, I got to figure out how to remove it from the database, and I can't do that with flat files. So I I learned how to use Postgres, which is like a really, really scalable relational database, and that really improved the scalability of the website by 10x. And yeah, that's when I learned how to write SQL code, which is SQL. And yeah, I think echoing to your point about like me not knowing what I didn't know, that's a really, really good point, because I think I have a suspicion or inkling that people have already done this before, but it's domain investors who do this themselves and they don't share it with everyone else because they want to keep sort of this knowledge to themselves, which makes sense. But in my case, I was coming in from a startup perspective. Like, I was trying to help fellow founders to find names, and I didn't think about it in a way that I want to buy all these names and then resell them. I just thought about like, oh, I could find really cool names. Perhaps you want to check it out. You can find a name for your product, for your project. So that's sort of I think I have a unique perspective coming into the domain industry. The fact that I'm a founder and I'm also active in the startup community. So that's sort of like how it all came together, I guess.
And how many domains do you have listed as of today?
Right now, it's about 1.2 million. It's a lot because it's over 87 different TLDs. So there are like some TLDs that might not be as relevant, which makes sense. And in total, it's about 30,000 words that are within my database right now. And it's categorized into different categories, like adjectives, nouns, verbs. There's also like other random categories like battleship names, god names, names of gods, which sometimes can sound really cool, etc. So yeah.
So then so the person that goes to use OneWord.Domains, then they can really begin to carve based upon, or rather filter and sort based upon their own liking or descriptors. That gets them down to a subset, I guess, a handful of names that then they can choose from. So that's interesting. So it's one thing from a tool standpoint to be able to do that. But then I guess now from a branding standpoint, I mean, have you given much thought to, okay, how do you help folks? Great, we have a list of names, but then how do we help folks actually find, I guess, the best representation of a brand at that point?
That's a good question. It's been a problem that I actually wrote about this in my senior thesis. It's basically the whole idea of being able to create names based on using natural language processing, which is a form of machine learning, to identify topics that are similar to whatever industry you're building your startup in. So right now I'm working on this prototype. I think I launched the beta about in February. It's like an AI name generator that creates names out of thin air, like basically made up words, as well as
Google, Yahoo.
Exactly, Google, Yahoo, Vercel, all these different names that are like made up. But at the same time, also be able to identify topics that are related to your industry, and then from that, determine what are the one-word domain names or existing words out there that might be relevant, as well as also word combinations. So like, I don't know, Mixpanel, Facebook, it's a combination of two words in itself. So all these different names that are basically like improving the efficiency of people when they're trying to brainstorm names for the startup.
So that gets into different things. So like, For some of the listeners, they've not heard of OneWord.Domains. And so, to them, it's one of those things of, well, okay, am I going to be paying thousands of dollars for most of these domains that I find on there? Or are they pretty reasonable in terms of affordability?
The initial idea was to help people find names at registration price. So it's literally the
Oh,
price
wow.
that you pay if the name is like it's not taken. That's the whole premise of OneWord Domains. And eventually, it sort of evolved beyond that. And now I do have names that are premium listed on the site, but not too much. I try to focus the offerings on available domain names. The ones that are premium, they are not that expensive. Like I think the most expensive is like a few $1,000s, but most of them are below 100. So you should be able to get names fairly easily.
I guess in terms of, so help us understand, I guess, how do we use OneWord.Domains? Because it looks like things have changed. I'm sitting here looking at the site right now, and I'm like, man, seems like a lot has changed since I've been here. So it looks like that you're offering some sort of plan. So kind of explain us through and walk us through, I guess, how, if someone goes there right now, OneWord.Domains, like begin to walk us through how they would use this tool to be able to go about finding, different domain names.
Basically, okay, so you go on OneWord Domains, there are a few ways that you can use it. First is just if you want to just browse the list of domain names, you can go over to the TLDs tab and you'll see a bunch of TLDs that are available for you to check out. The plans that are listed right now is basically to give you access to the TLDs that you're interested in. So, for example, .so, which is a very popular startup TLD, it's a premium TLD. So, like basically, you have to purchase access to be able to view the domains that are within that list. So that's one way to use the website. There's also another way, which is search. So in the top search bar, you can basically write down a specific word that you're interested in. And for example, you could write like money or I don't know, like a bird name, like a falcon, for example.
Right.
And you'll see a list of words that are related to that, the inquiry, like the search query that you put in. And that really helps with, brainstorming and helping you understand what are the names that are relevant to your search query. And right now I'm actually trying to improve that, the whole user experience by making it more intentional when it comes to, like, for example, you're looking for a specific startup name that for your company that does, like, I don't know, payment processing. So you can write down a description of what your company does, and from that it sort of derives the specific industries and then connects you with the words that are related as well as names that are made up. And I can go a bit deeper into that, but that's basically the AI name generator component of the whole tool. And I'm trying to streamline everything and make sure that the whole user experience is not as confusing. That's like right now it's a bit, there are like a few options for you to choose from, so it can get a little confusing. But at the end of the day, I really want to make it a very seamless and all-in-one sort of user experience that's more intuitive.
Gotcha. And so this is interesting because as I look at some of the TLDs, so there are TLDs that don't have locks, and then there are TLDs that do have locks. So I'm assuming the ones without locks, you can actually go in, view those, but then the ones with locks, you're basically going to need, I guess, a payment plan or some sort of plan to be able to view those TLDs.
Exactly. So you have to purchase a purchase one of the plans on the site to be able to access those specific TLDs. But right now, I'm actually planning to change the whole pricing structure a little bit. Haven't really decided on the final thing yet, but I will be announcing that very soon. But for people who've already purchased plans, they don't have to worry because I'll be sort of grandfathering them into the new system. But for people who are looking to purchase plans in the future, stay tuned. That's going to be a new some changes, and yeah, I hope it's going to be for the best for users.
Well, fortunately for you, what's interesting is, and you hit on it earlier about timing. And when I think about where things are at with like the CCTLDs, so the country code top level domains, for those that don't know what CCTLDs are or when we mentioned it. So when I think about like .io .ai, .gg, .cc, .vc, and just some of those ones that have really, especially .io, that have really rattled off some top-notch sales as of late. So I assume then likely is the case that you're probably getting domain investors that are likely signing up for some of these plans, if not using your site to actually get a step ahead to a certain extent, if they don't already have tools and everything in place to be able to identify, one word, .ios, for instance, which are, just astronomically high right now.
Yes.
And so I would imagine that that's probably the case, that you're getting a mixture of people startups that are probably out there trying to find a brand, but probably more so domain investors are likely on that OneWord.Domains. Is that an accurate statement?
That's very accurate. So far, I think the sort of breakdown is about 50% domain investors and about 30% startups, and then 20% branding agency. So I think there's this sort of composition of three different types of users. First one is domain investors, startup founders is the second one, and the third one will be branding agencies who do this on a regular basis. So the first and the third group of users, domain investors and branding agencies, those are the ones that would purchase the plans for like on a recurring basis. Whereas for startup founders, they purchase like for a month and then they churn, which makes sense because they don't really need once they find a name, they don't need the service anymore. So right now, what I'm planning to do, I can talk about it as well. I'm evolving the product into a more branding / marketing automation service that would be something that startups would be using on a recurring basis. So once they find a name, a logo, design a logo, and then once they create a brand, they can derive marketing materials from that brand. So for example, Facebook ads, promo videos, and all these different products, they can basically do it within the new tool, which is called Elegance. That's the whole sort of trajectory that I'm going on right now.
So what did you say? What did you say it was?
It's basically called Elegance.ai. It's
Elegance.
I would say it's like the next evolution of OneWord.Domains. So think about Pokemon. You have like what's it called, Pikachu,
right?
And it evolves into Raichu. So like I would say that Elegance is like the Raichu for OneWord.Domains. So it's the next generation. And at the end of the day, though, the OneWord.Domains website will still be on because it's where everything started. It's still going to be there. People are still going to be able to access that. But when it comes to account management, I'm going to be porting everything over to Elegance, which has a much better sort of scalability because I'm using Kubernetes, which is like a complex, it's like a cloud container, exactly, for people to build really, really large scale web apps. And the plan is to be able to scale this up into a proper business and a tool that is used by right now there's about 100 to 300 million startups that are created every single year. I want all of them, hopefully, if it's possible, to come to Elegance, make Elegance their first stop when it comes to creating a brand, and then eventually use us to create marketing materials down the road. It's a very ambitious plan, but
but it's an actual. I mean, so this is an interesting play because, to a certain extent, when I think about the domain industry, most people would probably say, more than not, most domain investors need help selling their domains. You've taken a whole different approach and said, well, not only are there domain investors, but they're domain developers. And then there are brands that are out there that just need help finding, names. Exactly. And obviously the brands are probably looking for that one perfect name, whereas investors are looking for, multiple names. And the domain developers are, hey, is that name, can it be developed into a business? And so you've have these three different lanes that I think is an interesting play that we don't quite often see in the domain industry. And then the one thing that comes to mind, though, that as you were talking about Elegance, I was like, did Steven actually use his own tool to figure out that Elegance.ai was available?
Yes. That's a very funny story. I actually found the name Elegance.ai on OneWord.Domains. I was just browsing through the AI category, and I was like, the second most popular name based on the number of registered TLDs. So we can go deeper into that, but it's basically an indicator of how popular a certain word is based on the number of TLDs that is registered. So I saw the second most popular word was elegance, and I was like, that's a really good name for something that's related to branding. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna buy that name, but at the same time, I really want the Twitter handle for it. So I reached out to the owner of the Elegance handle, and she was willing to sell it. And I was like, let's do this. I'm going to rebrand to Elegance. That's how everything got started.
Wow, that is phenomenal. And the fact that you used your own tool, that's the other thing. I mean, that is incredible. And so you're going to keep both of these. So Elegance.ai is going to be, like you said, I guess you're going to port more of the business over to it. But then the OneWord.Domains is kind of your bread and butter, what got you started. You're going to keep that there. Now, and to a certain extent, I mean, are you still getting traffic from like Hacker News, Product Hunt, all of those, or, kind of what has all that stuff died down?
So yeah, I think most of the traffic that I get right now is from pure SEO. So like people finding finding OneWord.Domains on Google, and they just visit it. There are still sort of like a bit of traffic coming in from ProductHunt every now and then when people look for domain tools on there, but it's not the majority of the traffic. I think I also want to like touch upon your point where you mentioned helping domain investors sell their domains.
Yeah,
that's actually going to be one of the focus that I'll have with Elegance, because I want to create this database of aftermarket domains where I take zero commission. So basically, nice. Whenever you sell a name, all the profits go to you, because my goal, I'll be charging the buyer per se, because like I'm charging them a monthly fee or a one-time fee to use my service, and that's going to be where the revenue is coming from. So whenever they purchase domain, I want them to be able to get the domain at the least possible price. So I don't want to add on like a 9% commission like what Dan.com is doing, or like I don't know how much GoDaddy takes, but I think it's like 20%. So like I don't want to add on any margins to startup founders who are already pretty broke. so yeah, that's the ultimate goal. But I haven't really gotten started on the curation part, which is basically allowing people to list their domain names. So I'll be announcing that very soon. And I think that will be very exciting for domain investors, because it's literally like the best way to reach end users.
So that makes me think of something else totally different, which is in terms of the plans that you're offering for people. Do any of these plans allow for like alerts and notifications? So if I said something like, oh, I want to know when a domain that uses this phrase or this exact word, if it becomes available, then are you notifying folks that, hey, this is available? And then I guess the next part of that question, which is the obvious thing, hearing what you just said, is, from a standpoint of not only what's available at hand reg, but then it assumes that would lend itself to aftermarket as well.
Definitely. Yes, I do have that in place at the moment. So it's like a notification service that sends you emails whenever a domain name changes name service, or if they become available. But I'm thinking if that's going to be something that will continue with Elegance or not, because it really depends on what the users need.
Right.
I do think it's going to be a very useful service, especially when it comes to like when a user is trying to look for a name and it happens to be registered, or it's not even for sale yet, and then when it becomes available or it becomes available in the aftermarket, I'll notify the user. Still thinking about if I'm going to be implementing this, but that's definitely one of the features that I currently have on OneWord.Domains.
Awesome. So then, like, how many users do you have using OneWord.Domains?
Right now, it's about 5,000 monthly users. So it's like these includes people who have purchase plans and free users as well. So that's for people who have purchase plans. So it's paid users. It's about 500 at the moment.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So then I guess, so you really got, so is it just you that's developing on this, or have you had to hire a team yet, or is that even in the works?
Definitely. I'm looking to build out a team for this, but right now it's just me. I did work with a few contractors before, but no one like full-time working on this except for me. But I think to build out Elegance, I'll definitely need to have a strong team to be able to like get up and running really quickly, because doing it by myself, I can do it, but it'd probably take like a year, which is not ideal.
At some point, you got to say, am I going to make this a real business?
Mhm.
Or is this just going to always remain a hobby? And I don't know. I think it's as if the decision was already made for you. You got pulled into, hey, this is going to become your business, your
Mhm.
lifestyle. Now, do you have any other projects that are going on outside those two?
So right now, my time is sort of split between this as well. I'm doing a bit of freelance work for Vercel. I'm actually wearing that T-shirt, but they're basically the go-to platform for people to deploy their websites, and it's very very simple to use, and they're doing really well. They're raising another round of funding, and but they're doing really well, and I'm basically helping them with with a freelance project, and I'm also working on Recurrence.app, which is it's a project that I built last year when I was looking to create an affiliate program for OneWord.Domains, because I realized that there's no like affordable solution out there that is easy to use, easy to set up, and effective. So I decided to just build it myself, and actually sold that project to one of my friends who is starting a product venture studio. And I think that product is a really good fit for them because they're basically going to be creating a lot of tools for creators. They're helping creators build tools, and I'm basically helping them with the whole integration. And yeah, we're gonna announce that very soon. So I'm very excited.
So I guess is that so the recurrence.app, is that a it makes me think of Patreon, I guess, or is it
It's
how different is it?
so it's more like Commission Junction or like any other affiliate management tools.
Oh, okay.
Exactly. So for example, if you want to set up a affiliate program for your website or for your online store, you can use Recurrence to. It's a very easy to use. You can literally put a script in your head tag, and then it automatically tracks whoever clicks on the affiliate links that you send out to your affiliates, basically.
Nice. And then I was sitting there thinking when you were talking about Vercel, and I was like, man, why do I know that name? And it was, I believe I ran across it through namebase.io
Oh,
and
interesting.
Handshake. And I believe it was with Handshake Domains that was setting up some sort of web hosting using a Handshake domain. But I was like, man, I know that name from somewhere, but I
Interesting.
couldn't place it until
I
then.
didn't. Okay. Okay. I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't know the sort of affiliation with Handshake. Maybe they are hosting their website on WhatsApp, but I'm not sure. I'm gonna check that
Yeah,
out too.
I think if I'm correct here, let me look and see because I'm pretty certain they have some use cases. Yeah, Handshake and Vercel. Yeah, create a website on Handshake using Vercel.
Oh, interesting. Okay,
Yeah,
I
so
gotta check that out. Yeah, they're really. I think they're popular amongst a lot of startups, a lot of Fortune 500 companies like Hulu. I think Airbnb and all these big websites. They're actually using Vercel for deployment, and that's how they're trying to basically get the top 10,000 Alexa websites to be on Vercel. It's like a huge goal, but I think they are on track to achieving that very very soon. So I'm just really excited to be a part of their journey and just help them with the project. And thinking maybe I might eventually do a full-time role with them, just to be able to learn from the best developers in the industry, and at the same time build out Elegance on the side. But I'm still sort of deciding what to do.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. Now, one question I do have for you is when I was reviewing your LinkedIn, I was like, "What in the heck is Major League Hacking?"
Mhm.
I'm like, "Is this like a baseball analogy or play a metaphor or something?" I'm like, "Man, what in the world is this all about?"
Yeah, sure. It's I know I can see the baseball reference. I didn't see it before. I can't believe that. Now I do see it. But it's basically an organization. It's a nonprofit organization that organizes hackathons in
Mm.
U.S. universities. I got to know them ever since my freshman year because I was very active in all these hackathons, mainly for the free food. They had a lot of really good free food, and I was a broke college student, so I was like I would go to all these places. But that was like my first introduction to coding, and I'm very grateful to be able to be a part of what did they call it? I think it was the cohort last summer. Actually, not last summer. It was last semester where I just worked with I think it was a team of 20 developers. We built projects together, learned new technologies together, and I think that was like my first time actually learning Next.js, which is the flagship framework for Vercel. They created this framework, and it's basically a React framework that allows you to build really really high performance really fast loading websites. And that's the first time I actually learned about this framework was in basically hacking. And since then, I've just been in love with this framework because it's just so powerful. And I've been now that the sort of freelance project I'm doing is actually to improve the framework. And yeah, I think it all sort of comes full circle,
Right.
if you think about it.
Right. Now, man, what strikes me as odd is like I think about it and I'm like, man, I had a 20-year run in software development, engineering, great career, lucrative career. And here it is. I look at you and I'm like, man, this guy doesn't look a day over 20. And you've achieved quite a lot very early on. And so, it begs to ask the question of, like what lies ahead for Steven? Like, where do you go from here?
Mm-hmm. First of all, I'm actually a little bit over 20. I'm 24. I look young, probably because I'm Asian, but I'm actually a little older than peers in my class because the education system in Malaysia is a little longer than other countries. So I'm like 2 years, on average, 2 years older than my peers. So I'm 24, but I'm really excited for what lies ahead because this is just the beginning. I feel like in software development, the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. So it's like I'm just barely scraping the surface with the other knowledge and technologies that I've learned. And there's just so much more to improve on. And every single day you see all these really cool innovations coming out. And my goal is to be able to build something that impacts the lives of a lot of people, millions of people worldwide, help them get better at something or build better brands or build better products. That's the ultimate goal that I have. And working with Vercel could be a good way to achieve that because they develop really cool products and they have really, really smart people that I can learn from. Or if building out Elegance full time, that is also something that I can learn a lot of new technologies from that experience as well. So I'm really excited for what's to come. I think for me, it's definitely being able to become a better developer and at the same time run a business and run a profitable company. So those are the main goals that I have moving forward.
That is awesome because I sit and I go, man, how do you top OneWord.Domains and
I think about that.
Like, where do you go from those two things? Those two things you could work in so many different angles and directions and simultaneously, and they could turn to be something not that they haven't been lucrative thus far, but I go they even go into just exponential levels of profitability and just wealth and generational wealth at that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, generation. I love the phrase generational wealth. That's something that I really want to build moving forward. And I think it's definitely something that I wake up in the middle of the night sweating and worried about, which is the fact that how do I top what I've achieved before? Like with OneWord.Domains, like, I've already got to the top of ProductHunt. Can I even do that again? Is that even possible? It's something that I worry a lot, but I realized over time that there's no point in worrying. You just got to do what you do, and success comes with consistency. So like when you're consistent at doing something, no matter what, the universe will always align and will give you the success that you deserve at the end of the day. It might not come tomorrow, might not come in the next year, but as long as you keep at what you're doing and not just work hard but also work smart, that is the best way to achieve success at the end of the day.
I certainly wish you well. Now, in terms of the domain industry now, do you consider yourself a domain developer, or what do you consider yourself, or a domain investor? Like,
I consider myself the bridge between domain investors and end users. So I want to help people who own names, who want to get rid of their names or sell their names for a profit, connect them with the people who need those names. And being this bridge is something that really fulfills me. I remember I actually helped a few people. Whenever I help them get the names they want, they're always very grateful, very excited to tell me, oh my God, I found this really, really cool name. Thank you so much for your service. And it's basically what keeps me going and gets me off bed every morning. So yeah.
That is amazing. And it's so interesting because I always wonder about folks who come in and they develop products for the domain industry. Do they eventually become domain investors? And so in your case, it doesn't sound like that's where you're going to lean or even spend any of your time. Obviously, it's like, hey, if you have a product or you have an idea to go develop, you'll certainly take some time, go and, look through domain names and figure out. But other than that, it doesn't seem like you're going to be in it in terms of being able to buy and sell domain names. It's just like, nah, I want to focus, focus my efforts to providing a product and a service for those who are, 5 times, 10 times better than me. If that's what, their lane they're going to run in, hey,
Definitely.
let them run in that lane and just let me be there to provide, a service to help them run in that lane more efficiently.
Exactly. It's so much bigger than me. And I think it's just the whole industry of like up and coming startups and upcoming products, being able to be a part of their journey, be able to help them create a name, create a brand. That's just like, it's insane if you think about it. It's like you're going to be helping name the next Notion, the next Google,
Yeah.
So to play just this small tiny role is just very fulfilling on an exponential scale.
Gotcha. Now, how many domains do you own?
Actually, not that much. I think it's less than 10 right now. I bought a few. Mainly, most of them are related to my product. So I have OneWord.Domains, I have Elegance, I have Elegance HQ, like a few variations of the names. And I even bought Steven.Yt, which is like for my YouTube channel. Because I have a YouTube channel. I'm not very active there right now, but I used to make a lot of videos. And I thought the YT extension was very appropriate. And it was just $6. So I was like, might as well just get it. So yeah, if any one of you starting YouTube channel, get it .yt because it's very, very convenient. You can put it in your Twitter bio, you can put it in your Instagram bio, and it's so short and so sleek. And I don't know. So yeah, those are the few names that I own. Not that many. Not really an investor. I wouldn't consider myself that. But yeah.
So you said it's a .yt or is it just your name yt.com?
No, it's Steven.yt.
Really? See,
yeah.
Learn something new every day. I didn't even realize. I mean, there are 312 CCTLDs, so not that I'm going to memorize all of them off the top of my head. Shoot, I can barely remember how to spell my name forwards, let alone backwards. So, hey, I kind of look at it and go, man, that's an interesting hack there, but
Definitely.
one that makes sense, like you said. I mean, .yt, and most people, that is it. YT, you think about it, YouTube. So
definitely very, very convenient. I actually recommended it to my friend who is running YouTube channel full time, and I was like, oh my god, this is the perfect extension for me, I guess.
So then now, do you own your own .com, like firstname.com, lastname.com, or fullname.com?
Fullname.com. I don't think I'm able to get Steven.com or Tey.com. It's very, very expensive. So I'm happy with StevenTey.com. That's what I have right now. It was really funny story. It's like, I think it was like a month into building OneWord.Domains, and I was like, in the middle of the night, I just woke up. I was like, oh my god. I was like, my girlfriend, I was like, what's going on? And I was like, I need to buy StevenTey.com before someone buys it. So I was like, I ran to my computer, I purchased it for 3 years. And that's when I got it. But I was so worried that someone's going to steal it. So I was like, oh no, I need to get it right now. It's a really funny story.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, like, man, listen, if you can get your full name .com first, especially if you can get your first name, if it is a unique spelling for your first name, get it. But typically, if you whatever variation of first, last name together, or first or last, then I tell people I'm a big fan of, go ahead and get all of that. Matter of fact, I actually had a podcast listener to gift me alvin.gg. That was cool. And there were so many people that had tipped me off about it. And I was like, man, I don't really know. I mean, I have alvinbrown.com. I'm okay with that. I likely won't get alvin.com or brown.com. So it's like, okay. And then when this came along and this person was so generous, man, it's like, man, I'm grateful that they were, that they thought enough of me to actually go bid, win it, and then gift it to me. So
damn, that's awesome. That's like every day, all this, the kindness that comes from your users, it's like what keeps me going. Like I have people who voluntarily gave me shout outs on Twitter, or like would just help me out with really, really in-depth feedback and suggestions. And that's always very, very nice to see. And I'm just very fortunate to be able to.
It may, it's like, it's one thing to get paid, but it's another thing to be recognized, to be appreciated, to be adored, to be valued. And that goes a long way, especially
money
when you're
can buy that.
products. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, certainly. And so, wrapping up here, like what would be your advice to someone who wants to dip their toe into domain development and
Mhm.
start by using, OneWord.Domains or Elegance? Like what would be your advice to them? Where should they start?
There are two sort of two-pronged to this answer. One would be you need to learn how to build. So, and that doesn't mean you need to learn how to code, because there are a lot of no-code tools out there right now that are very, very easy for you to set up. There's Webflow, there's Bubble, there's a bunch of them. You can literally build a website in a day without needing to know how to program. So that's up to you if you want to learn how to program. Personally, I think learning how to program, it definitely makes your sort of makes it more flexible. You can do a lot of way more things and become more versatile than doing no code. But if you want a quick and easy way to get started, no code is a good way to go. So learn how to build. That's the first part. And then the second part would be start with a personal problem that you face. So for example, if you think that your finances are a mess, you don't know how to manage it, you want to build an app to manage your finances, do that. It's People might resonate with you, and that's how I got started with OneWord.Domains in the first place, which is building something that I needed myself. There's also another way, which is really funny, because there's this concept of debundling of tech. So like
Hmm.
you can go to look at Google's product, and go to, I think it's about.google/products or something, and look at their products and see what are the ones that a lot of people use, but people really don't like using it with Google, because like right now there's a lot of this sort of data privacy issues that Google is coming under fire for.
Hmm.
So if you can build something that is like an indie product that solves a huge issue, and at the same time make it much better in terms of data privacy or the pricing itself. So one of my favorite examples to give is this product called Flurly. It's flurly.com.
Hmm.
It's run by a friend of mine. He's a very talented developer. He built it in public on Twitter. It's basically Shopify, but he only takes 1% of every sale. So it allows you to build your own products and sell it. If you're writing a course, if you're writing a book, you want to sell it, you can
Oh,
use
nice.
his product to do it very easily. And his progress has been phenomenal in the last year. He's getting, like, I think right now it's about $10,000 in gross monthly volume, which is like the amount of money that gets processed through his platform.
Wow.
So yeah, it's incredible. I think that's one of the things that you can do. So build something that is um, basically improve on a product that's already existing out there. You don't really have to reinvent the wheel. Most of the time, it's just making incremental innovations to an
Yeah.
existing product, and that's how you get product market fit, because it's something that people are already paying for. But if you build it much better and like have a better user experience, people will automatically switch over to you. I mean, it's easier said than done, but if you target the right market and target the right niche, that's how you can become successful. So these two things: number one, learn how to build, and number two, solve the right problem, I guess.
Wow. Now, one of the things that sticks out to me hearing you say that is, and it kind of makes me think back to your story of if you look back at OneWord.Domains and everything that's happened up to this point, like what would you change, or would you change anything about your journey?
That's a good question. I don't think I would change anything as much as, I guess, I always look back at the old code that I wrote, and I think, oh, why did I do this? Why did I do that? It's kind of looking back at your old Facebook profile pictures and like, why did I post this? And I guess the only thing I would change is that I would write more efficient code from the beginning, because right now I do have a bunch of technical debt that I have to like sort of process and improve on. So being able to write proper code from the beginning, but it's kind of hard, because like I mean, starting in the beginning, I didn't know all these best practices, so I couldn't
Totally.
blame myself. So I think it's a
Totally.
iterative process. So yeah,
And you learn along the way. I mean, when I think back to
exactly,
my 20-year career, where I ended and where I started are two different places, and
100%.
where I ended is light years ahead of where I started. And so I learned so much along the way, and I was able to go back to some of those early projects and
Hmm.
refactor and bring them up in terms of quality of their code quality and reducing technical debt, if not eliminating it altogether. And so, it's just, are you going to continue to learn? Now, for me, obviously, I got to a 20-year point, and I'm just like, listen, I don't want to do this anymore. I just don't want to code. I still code for my own personal stuff, but I don't want to code corporately or for any other startup or any of that stuff. So I pretty much said, once I get to that point, I got to bow out. I got to get out of the way, let someone else take the baton, take it to the next level. And that's what I did for me. So it works. But for you, hey, you're young.
Got a long way to go.
You've got many decades ahead of you, many successful products ahead of you. And so yeah, man. But last but not least, is there anything else that you'd like to share with listeners? For instance, if somebody has listened to this and they're like, man, I really want to get in contact with Steven. I want to know more about OneWord.Domains as well as Elegance.ai, or they just may, hey, they may have a project that they say, listen, they're kind of similar. Can we partner? I mean, like, how should they get in contact with you?
Definitely. I'm the most active on Twitter, so you can reach me at Twitter. It's at Steven Tey, or you can reach me at email. It's basically just Steven@Elegance.ai or Steven@OneWord.Domains. It's basically just the first name. Also, if you want to follow along the progress of OneWord.Domains or Elegance, it's basically at Elegance on Twitter. Very proud of that handle. So awesome. Feel free to reach out in any of these channels. I will respond as soon as possible. But yeah, excited to hear from all of you.
Great. Well, with that, we're out of time. So Steven, thank you again for joining us today and sharing your entrepreneurial journey.
Thank you so much for having me again. And thank you. I'm just very grateful to be here.
And thank you, listeners, for tuning in to Kickstart Commerce, where we share search marketing and domain name strategies to help grow your business. Please subscribe to this podcast via iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, or Podbean. Last but not least, please visit kickstartcommerce.com to subscribe to the newsletter sharing tips and tricks about the disciplines of digital strategy. Thanks, and that's all for now.